It is time to make some offensive line predictions at Lettermen Row. It's Tim May, the 41-year vet. It's Andy Backstrom. I think we should flip a coin to see who goes first, but we don't have a three-sided coin, so we'll just go with Tim. Go ahead. You can have the first prediction here. I think we gave Andy the first prediction last week. If we didn't, that's okay. Tim, go ahead. Tim May, the 41-year vet. He's going to give the first offensive line prediction.
I knew that if I made some kind of weird movement, you'd pick me. It's kind of like, picking the guy in the crowd for The Price is Right. My prediction is, because I talk about him too much. I like him too much. The late Ken Fritz, rest in peace, mentioned I stood by him for like 35 minutes at a practice one day last spring, not this past spring, but the previous spring. Tegra Tshabola's got to bloom sooner or later. I think preseason camp is going to be huge for him. I think he's a different guy. I'm looking at Tegra Tshabola to nail down the right guard spot, and we'll see where it goes. But there's just a fire in him, I think, that wasn't there maybe even a year ago. I like Tegra Tshabola to get that, vacancy, fill that vacancy on the right side of the Ohio State offensive line. Tegra Tshabola, final answer.
Andy?
Yeah, I'm picking one of these guys to really bloom. I'm saying Josh Simmons is going to be a first-team All Big Ten player by the end of the year and an early day 2 draft pick. I'm saying that he goes in maybe even late first round, but I'm going to go early day 2, second-round pick. And I think that, Spencer was saying this in our video earlier this week, a lot of people were hard on Josh Simmons, and maybe rightfully so. When he started out at left tackle last year, there was some rough patches in the beginning part of the season. I think I was looking back at the stats, and through 5 games, he had committed 4 penalties, and that was after leading all tackles nationally in penalties the year before. He had allowed 7 pressures, but then by the end of the regular season, he only had 12 pressures to his name. He kind of got better with the penalties, and slowly and quietly, he just got really good. And now I think we're at this point now with his career coming over from San Diego State, spending now, a full year at Ohio State. It's really just been a little bit more than a year that he's been here. The maturation process, I think he could be a guy that is, one of the next good tackles to come out of Ohio State that has quite a lengthy NFL career.
Yeah, he's going to be so grateful that he transferred to Ohio State from San Diego State in the final analysis. I agree with you.
Yeah, he had no penalties in November. He was really good against Abdul Carter and Chop Robinson against Penn State. Really good. If you watch back that game, he
wore Chop Robinson out
until Chop Robinson got hurt, and then the game kind of changed a little bit. But you can't control that. And I thought he looked really good in that Penn State game. Go back and watch it if you seriously, fans, if you don't remember that game, watch Josh Simmons. Key in on him. He was good. And then again, like you said, Andy, cleaned up the penalties. I asked Justin Fry straight up, talking to him one day, are you worried about the penalties? He said, we'll fix that. And you're kind of apprehensive when a coach just thinks that he's got that much, and then he goes into the Indiana game and has penalties. In the Youngstown State game, I think he had a pretty ugly penalty. And then all of a sudden it's November and he's committing no penalties, especially against Michigan, one of the best defensive lines they played. Obviously that last play with he and Donovan Jackson didn't work out, but also, the body of work looked better. I like that, Andy. I'm going to stay in the NFL draft. I'm going to commit to the NFL draft, if you will. And I think 4 Ohio State offensive linemen, 4 Ohio State offensive linemen will be drafted in the 2025 NFL draft. That is probably the boldest prediction you will hear from me all summer. I think it's even bolder than Ohio State winning the national title. But I think they go hand in hand. Ohio State can't win the national title if this offensive line isn't good. And Josh Fryer, he could be a 6th or 7th round pick, and this still, I still could bank this thing in. Seth McLaughlin's played a lot of football, and he's going to have Ohio State and Alabama on his resume as a 3-year starter at center. I don't know how that kind of guy doesn't get drafted. I really don't. If he has a decent year. Donovan Jackson is absolutely going to be a draft pick. Whether he's a 3rd, 4th, 7th round draft pick, or whether he's a 1st round pick, he's going to get drafted. And then the wild card here are the 2 tackles like Josh Fryer, Josh Simmons. One of them is going to have more than 35 starts if Ohio State plays the amount of games. And Josh Fryer at least 25 starts if Ohio State plays the games that they want to. So, like, that's a lot of experience on an offensive line. What does the NFL love from its offensive linemen more than anything? Experience and knowledge of the game. Well, this is a pro offense that Chip Kelly runs. It's a pro offense that Ryan Day runs. It's a pro blocking scheme that Justin Fry likes. And the NFL is going to like these guys. And so all I need is for the right guard to be decent enough. And maybe Tegra Tshabola or Carson Hinsman has a good enough year where even they leave and go to the NFL. Like, there's a scenario where that happens. And so I think 4 Ohio State offensive linemen will be drafted. And I know that that's bold, but it's something that I'm going to hang my hat on.
So you're saying they're going to be voted the best offensive line in the country, basically, at the end of the year, whatever how that award is decided. I'm not sure there's a vote involved, but that's what you're saying, really, aren't you? Why don't you just come out and say it?
I don't know because I think Texas and LSU both have legitimate, like, top of the top first round NFL tackles. And I think the Joe Moore Award, and I think Cole Kubelik does a lot with that. I think they do a fantastic job identifying the offensive lines that are truly worthy of that award. Like, Oregon State's been up there for the last couple of years. They were fantastic. Michigan's offensive line has been fantastic. I think Air Force was in there. That offensive line moved people last year. So, like, Washington just won it this past year. They moved people last year, but they didn't even have all those NFL guys. I don't think they have to be the best offensive line for these guys to get drafted, because if they're all 6th round picks, it still wins. So maybe it's a little bit of a cop out, but also, like, if you have 4 NFL draft picks on your offensive line, that means that you were good enough to do the job for Ohio State. And
I think all 3 of us agree this is going to be a better offensive line than last year, right? I mean, I mean, that's not saying a whole lot. I understand that, but it's just funny because the pieces sometimes, from a maturity standpoint, it's kind of like watching concrete harden. You know what I mean? And that's what I like about this. And the new piece, which I think is going to be Tegra Tshabola, could be Luke Montgomery, could be Carson Hinsman in that guard spot. But boy, it's a solid looking group with backups, and that's what intrigues me about it. But yeah, I can see everything that you just said there, Spence, believe it or not. And Tshabola could be the wild card from a draft standpoint also.
Yeah, he or Hinsman. They're both going to be draft eligible. So we'll see what happens. Andy, a little too spicy for your liking. You had quite the face there when I announced that pick.
Well, look, there's a lot of potential here. I'll tell you what, though. This group, many of which were participating in the Cotton Bowl, they did not look very good at all. They looked actually very bad, just to say it. And I think a lot of it's mental. Like, there were just mistakes made in that game. Even Josh Simmons, who I talked up earlier in this video, he had a pretty rough outing in that Cotton Bowl. He had a great end to the regular season, and then he gave up his only sack of the year, just totally got beat off the edge, and Devin Brown got killed for it. And I think, Donovan Jackson wasn't at his best. You go across the line, of course, there was the difference with Matthew Jones sliding over to center and Enoch Vimahi playing at right guard. But that's aside from the point. I mean, everyone was rough that day up front. And I think that was an eye opener. That it's not really the talent. It's are they working together? Are they in sync? Are they with it mentally? Like, are they dialed in? And I think a lot of that comes to coaching, development. This is a big year for Justin Fry. And I think, the talent is clearly there, as you said, Spencer. I mean, I think that's possible. They could have 4 guys, maybe none of them go in the first round, but 4 guys that are drafted. The question is, are they going to be developed and coached the right way to where we see nothing like we saw in the college?
Yeah. And the other thing is,
they can't have that anywhere close to that.
And everybody's got to study that Missouri video. Missouri came after these guys in great ways, really challenged that right guard spot in that game, in my opinion, basically throwing them off. It was a clinic really on how to attack Ohio State's offense. So people can talk about Devin Brown, Lincoln Keno's all they want. They had no chance in that game on a consistent basis. And two teams I've really got my eye on, quote, early in the season, although it's really not till October, or Iowa, and then followed by the trip to Oregon, where Oregon, is going to probe whether Ohio State's offensive line is for real or not. The first 3 games of the season will be interesting to watch because they'll be able to solidify to a certain extent, but they're not going to be challenged really until October on a big-time basis, and then we're going to see things, and definitely Penn State will challenge them. So October is going to be really the real deciding point on whether this offensive line is for real.
Yes, it will. And then obviously November, Michigan has an incredible.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about those 3 games in October. You're going to have your answers about this line, in my opinion, including Penn State game.
Yeah, by the time we get to Michigan, we'll already know. Can they block Michigan or can they not? We'll already know by then. Yeah, you guys bring up the Cotton Bowl, and I know that you can't just erase it, but like I have so far erased the Cotton Bowl from my memory that like, oh yeah, the offensive line was terrible in that game. Like I usually try to find better words to use because we write for a living, but like no, it was terrible. Like it really was, and I think they would all admit that too. Like I don't think anybody ran away from that. It was a lack of focus, a lack of clarity, a lack of on some reps. I thought effort. Like it just was. It was bad, and so. If you get the opposite of the Cotton Bowl, then I think that you're looking at a pretty good line. Tim May, the 41-year vet, he's looking for Ohio State to improve on the offensive line. That prediction was good, Tim. I appreciate you being on here for this video. Andy Backstrom the same way. Thank you for being here, Andy, and thank you for your prediction. If you don't like our predictions, put them in the comments because even bad comments help us on YouTube. That's fine. Subscribe and like on YouTube because that helps us. That's great. And then go to lettermenrow.com where you can get $1 gets you 2 months with the code OSU1. That's right. $1 gets you 2 months with the code OSU1. That gets you right into the heart of training camp. And then by then, you'll want to subscribe for an entire year. We would greatly appreciate that. For Tim on the other side of that screen, for Andy, I'm just Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys back here next week on this very YouTube channel. We're going to break down the Ohio State defensive line. A lot to discuss there. We'll talk to you then. We'll see you over at Lettermen Row.